One of the very first settlers to Kentucky, one of Daniel Boone's men, an Indian fighter, and so much more.
He was Benjamin Dunaway. He came into Kentucky 1779 with Daniel Boone.
Awesome, awesome. Hey everybody, this is Russ from Family Tree Nuts, and we are in Trapp, Kentucky, in rural Clark County, not too far from the Kentucky River. We're standing in front of Dunaway United Methodist Church, and I'm here with a special guest. Do you want to tell them who you are?
I'm Sue Baber Castle. I'm my family's historian and a descendant of Benjamin Dunaway.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That the church is named after, and here we are.
Correct.
And right now we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but we're not far from the river.
That's right, which would have obviously been the way they traveled along the river. And we do seem like we're in the middle of nowhere, but for them it wasn't.
Yeah, this was right off Main Street, I guess, on the river right there.
That's right.
So who is Benjamin Dunaway? Where was he born? When was he born?
Yeah, Benjamin Dunaway was born about 1757 in Virginia. And we know that he traveled with Daniel Boone into Fort Boonesborough. About 1779, we do know that he raised crops there on some land in order to establish land that he would have gotten because he was a Revolutionary War veteran.
So when he was at Boonesborough there, you know, as a young man, and I guess in 1782 he took part in a very famous battle.
He did. So as we know, Kentucky history, 1782 was kind of pretty intense for Indians attacking all of the forts.
All over the place.
This ended up being Estill's defeat. He became part of Estill's defeat with the Indians that had attacked the fort there.
Actually, one of the survivors, too, you know, kind of thing.
He was. He ended up being just one of 18 survivors for Estill's defeat.
The Wyandotte Indians had a band that were doing raids on all the forts all over the place, and Captain James Estill rounded up a bunch of men from the different stations, different forts, to go and attack them. And while they were gone, they attacked the fort, his own fort. Estill Station was about 15 miles from Boonesborough, about 3 miles from modern-day Boonesborough.
So we're not sure if Benjamin was maybe still at Fort Boonesborough or maybe made his way over to Estill's fort.
Sure.
But we know he was in that area and he was part of the Kentucky militia.
Right. And so while the men were out, they actually attacked his own fort and killed a woman and took James Estill's slave monk, the famous monk Estill. You can learn about him also. But they met up with the Indians and were defeated.
They were. Sadly, they were defeated quite soundly.
Yeah, and that's known as Estill's defeat, there's another name for the battle.
The Battle of Little Mountain.
Little Mountain, which is outside of modern-day Mount Sterling.
That's
Kentucky,
which is where they caught up with the Indians and ended up having their battle.
Yeah, that's some stories he could tell. So,
exactly.
And then after that, I guess he went back around the Boonesborough area and he found a wife.
He did. He found a wife, married her. Actually, they had their wedding at Fort Boonesborough.
Awesome.
Ended up having 7 of their children at Fort Boonesborough.
Wow.
And then they ended up in this general area, which is southeastern Clark County, and as we said, not far from the river. So this was where they had the last 3 children that he would have raised.
Right here in the Trapp area, here. Why are we here at this church, though? I mean, you know, kind of thing is as he marries, moves over here to Trapp.
Right. And how did the church get named after him?
Sure.
Exactly. Well, at the time he was a man of God. He wasn't a minister, but they did open up their home so that the circuit riders who did come through and preach could have a place to meet. And it ended up being known as Dunaway's meeting place.
What year was that?
That was the 1810 to 1815. It was opened up to them. And the establishment of the church was about 1815. And Dunaway has been known to be in existence since 1815.
That's amazing. This church over here is over 200 years old.
It is.
I think they met in his house for a while.
They did. They met in his house for a while. And then he wanted to donate his home to the church. And
I think he sold it.
And he did. He sold his home for $1. That's exactly right. How could I forget? He did. He sold his home for $1 to the church, but his home burned. But they still wanted to have a meeting place, so they ended up building a new building for the church, and that's where we're standing, in front of Dunaway United Methodist Church.
Awesome.
Where his home would have been.
That's amazing. Right here in this area.
Right here in this area.
And you see the graveyard there, and I know you guys have seen lots of these churches with small graveyards out in the country, and so you know the area that we're at here. But what a neat thing to know that your 4th great-grandfather lived right here on this spot. When did he die?
He died about 1831.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So he lived a nice, long,
So
happy life.
He did. He had a nice
So-
life with several children in
And
there.
his name's right there on the wall there at Boonesborough,
Yeah,
on the monument
That's
outside.
exactly
so.
right. His name is on the monument outside.
Now, I think that you said, when we were talking earlier, you said that 10 years ago you didn't know any of this,
That's exactly right.
and you grew up nearby.
I did. My mother actually grew up 20 minutes from here. She grew up in a little community called Gulf's Corner, or as the area is kind of known by most people as Indian Oldfields,
Okay.
because it was the last Indian village.
What's the name of the Indian village?
The Indian village is actually a Skippakathiki, but most people just refer to it as Indian Oldfields.
Got it. She grew up
Yeah.
there, and so your
Yeah.
people have been here for 200 plus years.
My people have been here for exactly over 200 years, although I didn't know that long until I found that Benjamin Dunaway was my ancestor.
What an amazing discovery.
It
What an
really
amazing
is.
discovery.
To know that I've walked these ares for
Yeah.
most of my life, and to find out the roots that I actually have planted here.
Absolutely. And what's it like to be here? I mean, is there any kind of feeling at all? Or
It feels like home.
yeah,
It feels like home.
a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah.
It's almost spiritual in some
Exactly
ways.
right.
So.
It feels like I belong here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, anything else you'd like to say while we're here?
I'm just glad that we can finally we have records that have led us to certain places, but I think this is important too, to be able to pass this on. I didn't know this until 10 years ago, but I want other members of my family to know the history
Sure.
that we have and the roots that we have and where they actually came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing me out here to meet Benjamin Dunaway and learn about your amazing ancestors. So
He was amazing.
Absolutely. So here we are in Dunaway United Methodist Church in Trapp, Kentucky, rural Clark County. The church and the graveyard where Sue's fourth great-grandfather, Benjamin Dunaway, is buried. And hey, remember, family tree nuts. Let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.